Hey everybody, Mac here. Good morning. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons. What we have here is... we have right here something that has received, let's be kind and say, mixed reception online. The Playmates Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2-pack, Leonardo and Rocksteady. And I know some collectors have sort of been less than gracious in their response to these, deriding it for basic sculpts, basic paint apps, and basically trying to compare a $35 2-pack to something that NECA and Super 7 has put out. Now there's a big difference here, that NECA and Super 7 are collectors' lines. Playmates, this is for kids. This is $35 for 2 figures, accessories, and stands. You buy this for a kid right out of the box. A good guy and a bad guy. He has a complete play experience right out of the box. You don't have to worry about buying another figure. You don't have to worry right away about getting all 4 turtles. He can take this out of the box. He or she can open this up, take this out of the box, and just go crazy with it with their imagination from the start. So, why do I have this? Because I, despite having grown up on the Turtles, playing the role-playing game, reading Mirage comics, seeing the cartoon, even doing the transition over to Archie comics when Archie started making the comics, I do not have a representation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on my shelf other than those Mega Construx micro action figures that we saw, Card and Link, that are fantastic. Don't get me wrong, they are really great. I really like those guys. I like them so much that I've been displaying them with, like, my Mega Construx Masters of the Universe line because we haven't received any villains, and I don't think Mega Construx is going to go any further with the Mirage look for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is a shame because I was hoping for Shredder. I was hoping for the Mirage Shredder. I was hoping for Mirage Foot Soldiers, Baxter Stockman, Splinter, April, Casey. But it looks like we're just going to get those 4 turtles, and that's it. So I have those, I love those, they're being used, they're being displayed, but I want one that I can have sort of like turtle representation of good guys and bad guys, and you get that with these, because if we flip around to the back, you can see that there's sort of a cross-sell. We have all 4 turtles, we have all 4 villains over here, and it says what else we're going to be getting. Leo versus Rocksteady, Michelangelo versus Bebop, Raph versus the Triceraton, Donatello versus Shredder. That's probably the one everybody's waiting for to get Shredder. So I picked up, right now near me, it's just Leonardo versus Rocksteady and Michelangelo versus Bebop. So I picked this up just to give it a shot. And I picked up Leo versus Rocksteady because, quite frankly, I like Leo better than Mikey, and I like Rocksteady more than Bebop. Okay? This is designed for kids, as I said, but I think this is also designed for somebody like me, who does not have any turtles on the shelf, and doesn't necessarily want to invest in NECA or Super 7, and just wants the 4 turtles, wants the main bad guys, and that's it. And truthfully, that's all I want. And I don't want to be spending a lot on it. As I said, when I've looked at Predators and compared those to, like, the NECA Aliens and Predators, I just don't want to pay the money for the NECA version of the product, because truthfully, I'm not a fan of NECA. And I'm not bagging on NECA, I'm not bagging on anybody that likes NECA. NECA's just not for me. So I wanted to get these, get a look at these, because Playmates has these 2-packs out. They also have the classic Turtles out, which is basically the molds and sculpts used from the 80s and 90s, and they're reissuing those. Well, I had those. Even as a kid, I was never a big fan of those, but I like this. I like the look of this. So let's get this open, and let's see what Mikey and Rocksteady look like once we get them out of the box. But, oh yeah, we have this big window up front. You see everything that it comes with. You can see their stands behind them and back. It has their names on the bottom with some comic cartoon-like graphics up top. It's just some bricks with the Turtles logo. On the bottom, same thing. The side, that brick motif continues. Same thing over here. And you saw the cross-sell that was on the back. So now, let's open this up and let's get them out, and we will take a look at Playmates, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Leonardo and Rocksteady. All right, friends, here they are out of the box, and oh man, is this a mixed bag. All right, we're going to start off with Rocksteady first, and we're not doing this in order of preference. It's just Rocksteady's going to be the easiest one. Leo has some issues on his own that we'll get to when we get to him. But first, let's take a look at Rocksteady. Let's put the tape measure to him. We'll see how he measures up. That standing in his neutral position, to the top of his head, he is just under 6 inches tall. Looks like he's 5 3/4, actually. 5 3/4 to the top of his head. Now, let's go over articulation. Oh boy. So, his head goes down a little bit. His head doesn't go up that much. There's not a whole lot of range of movement here. And I haven't been able to pop this off, and I'm worried that if I try, I'm going to break it. He can sort of do a full 360, but you see, whenever he does that, it's that deal where he's going to be looking up. And he has, without turning the head, he has a decent amount of tilt to it without getting into turning. These ears are semi-soft rubber that they're not going to bend out of position, but I don't feel like they're going to break either whenever you try to move them. Arms can come way up. They'll do a full rotation. He has bicep swivel. He has double-jointed elbows with some really great travel to them. Wrists pivot, or wrist swivel and pivot. Both wrists pivot in and out. Not a good thing for a guy that has 2 weapons. The waist is on a ball joint, but there's not a whole lot going on here. He can turn. It may not even be a ball joint. It may just be like a swivel. I don't know, like a dumbbell in there. Because there's a little bit of movement. Not much. Nothing side to side, but he can get his swivel going. He can even do the full turnaround. Legs can come out to the side. Forward, they only go about that far. Back, even less. The knees now, double-jointed knees can come to a little bit past 90, but then they also kick forward a lot. And the legs are very loose, by the way. That's an even bigger issue on Leonardo, but these legs are very loose. He has a boot swivel, no ankle pivot, no ankle rock, nothing. The boot is pretty much locked into this position, which means that for his neutral stance, if you look at the way his legs are, his feet are flat, he has a very wide neutral stance, which normally I wouldn't say that's a problem because Rocksteady's a big guy. He needs a wide stance to support himself. But don't lock him into this position because you're really limiting the things that you can do with him, especially when his only flat foot pose is this bent ankle pose that you can't get any, like, dynamic looks out of him. But then again, we have to go back to what I said, that these, I believe, were intended for children that may not be worried about posing, photographing, getting the perfect running shot, the perfect kicking shot, whatever. Now, the sculpt. Let's go over the sculpt of this guy. I know there's been a lot of hoo-ha about the basic sculpt of these things, but truthfully, his face, I don't have a problem with his face. He looks angry. He looks mean. He's ready. He looks like he's ready to kick the turtle's butt. And he can't look forward, that's a given, but in truth, a rhino can't look forward either. A rhino has to look out the side. So I don't mind that, and when you do get a look out the side, his eyes look so mean. And the paint application on it, it's molded in this gray, and then you paint the white on. I have a little bit of fading at the top of the horn, and I have, I don't know if you can see right there, I have some red overspray, which I can only imagine are from his shotgun shells or whatever these are in his bandolier. But the face sculpt, I don't have a problem with. I think this is a really great and mean look for Rocksteady. I really like that. And then you come down to the body. Like I said, he has his bandolier. He has this grenade hanging here. He kind of has 2 pins. There's this green pin right here on the grenade, and then it's sort of pinned onto this string, this leather strap going around him. I don't know. But at least they did something for extra paint there. And the bandolier is brown. You have the red shotgun shells, or the red shells going across it. That I don't think is bad. The t-shirt is absolutely just painted over the body. There's no sculpt on it. This is just a paint app on a gray body. You can even see how it comes all the way up to the neck up here, which is odd because they had a line right here that would have been a perfect spot to stop painting the tank top and just give him a gray neck. Instead, they took it all the way up to what I'm assuming is a ball joint under here that his head is attached to. He has these bracelets on, which these are a separate piece that I feel like if he took his wrists off, or he took his hands off, these would pop right off. He has these brown wrist straps right here. I really like the green bandolier, the bandana that's tied around his bicep right here with that little knot in back. I feel like that is really well done. And even though it's kind of dull, I do like the turtle shells, his trademark turtle shells that he has on his hips down here. Okay? One thing I forgot to mention on the articulation is that there is a ball joint at the hip, but you don't get much out of it. See that? Like, it'll swivel, and that works with the boot cut, but you still are limited by what these bent feet can do. He has some camo on his pants here, on his cargo pants. They did a good job on the belt and the silver buckle too. And then the boots, but when you get down to the boots, like, it's a little disappointing that the boots are just brown. A uniform brown, that for going through all of this with the camo on the pants, the nice detail they did on these shells, his bandolier, the grenades, the shotgun shells, even the part that they did up here, when you get down to the feet, it's just brown. Like, they didn't put any detail work in this at all. Nothing for silver on the clasp, nothing for laces. Like, they have these steel plates at the heels and a little bit up at the toe that they could have just done something to add some color to it. But then you get down to the bottom and he has a small amount of tread on them and these two big holes, which is for his stand, which we'll see in a minute. So the sculpt and the paint of Rocksteady, I don't have a problem with. He doesn't come with multiple hands. He only has these two gripping hands right here. Okay. And that is for his accessories. And let's set him back here, and we will start with his accessories. Oop, looks a little drunk. First of all, both of the figures come with a stand, and I like that. I appreciate, whether you use it or not, I appreciate any time a toy manufacturer gives you a stand with their product. McFarlane does that. I know Mezco does that, of course, for the amount that you spent for the 112, they better. But I always appreciate when you get a stand, and I really like this, with Playmates designing it like a manhole cover, with the logo across it, and their name printed. Like, the logo is just stamped in gray. It's molded in the gray plastic, but I like how they actually wrote the name Rocksteady to make it stand out. Now, these pegs are huge, that I doubt you're going to be able to use this for any other figure other than these, because they have huge peg holes in their feet, and it's spaced just wide enough that I feel like only these figures will work with these stands. And it's a decent stand. It's a heavy stand. It'll hold him up, which is good, because one of the issues with Rocksteady and Leo, more so with Leo, but also Rocksteady, is that because of the sculpt, they tend to be a little bit back heavy, and so they'll fall backwards. And with these stands, with the pegs at the back, you get plenty of support holding them up. Something else that he comes with, which I'm counting as an accessory, is his helmet here. And this is actually a decent sculpt, but once again, it's a little disappointing that it's only just all green, that they could have done some paint app on here for the strap going around the helmet that holds his goggles on, and the helmet fits on perfectly like that. However, it does not snap. So whenever I was playing with him, articulating him, I had this issue that the helmet just kept falling off. You see, it's very easy to come off. If you're going to buy these and you're going to use these as display, or you're going to pose him with the helmet on, the thing that I suggest is, in the packaging, and I don't know if it's going to focus on this, but in the packaging, there was this clear gummy, like almost this transparent rubber band. And what they did was, they ran it around the goggles, and then they just hooked this under his ears So now it catches in the front, it catches in the back, and the helmet doesn't fall off. So if you're going to if you plan on posing him with the helmet on, I suggest keeping that transparent rubber band thing to help hold the helmet on whenever you're moving him, or if you're going to put any tilt on his head or anything. All right. He also comes with this machine gun molded in a silver plastic. Not a whole lot of detail to it, but I do like it. I like that there's a trigger on it. There's a trigger hole for his finger, and there's a trigger on it. He has this bipod that doesn't really do anything because he doesn't really get into any decent prone positions because his head just won't come up far enough. But to get this, I do like that. That does look good. To get this in his hand, just push in and twist. The finger goes right into the trigger guard, and he has a decent grip on that. Okay? And finally, he has, molded in the same silver plastic, his machete. Now, this is cool. I like that they gave him a melee weapon, especially since they're putting him against Leonardo, the sword wielder. However, there's no place to sheathe this that I was really hoping in the package he might have had across his bandolier a sheath or something for his machete to go into. There's not even a peg hole on back that we could doctor something up to do it. He just has to hold it. And this hand seems like it was made specifically to try and grip this part of the machine gun, because whether you put the machine gun in this hand, even though he's packaged with it in this hand, or you try to put the machete in this hand, it doesn't get a good grip. It doesn't get a solid grip. Like, if you play around with it a little, you can, but you can see like it pops right out as soon as you try to do any movement. But he does look good holding his stuff. I like this version of Rocksteady. I think this looks really good. I think this looks really mean. I think he looks like he's ready to rumble with the Turtles. I really dig this. Now, if you take this out, because he's so big and he's so bulky, like, you can't really get an under a good two-handed pose out of him. You have to put the gun over his bicep and almost bring it right across. Get in there. And then he can hold it two-handed. It's not a very natural looking pose. And because the hands go in and out instead of up and down, it's kind of limited in where you can hold it. For a size comparison, here he is with Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Cobra Infantry Trooper and G.I. Joe Origins Storm Shadow. Putting him with some other monster-type figures, here he is with Lanyard Toys Xenomorph Drone and City Hunter Predator. Here he is with McFarlane Toys Mortal Kombat Scorpion and the Great Disappointment Liu Kang. And finally, Marvel Legends Captain Marvel and Loki. And next up we have Leonardo, and unfortunately I think this is where we're going to get to some of the serious problems of this set. So first of all, let's take the tape measure to him. We'll measure up Leonardo in his neutral stance, and to the top of his head, he is just under 6.5 inches tall. Are you seeing the problem yet? 6.5 inches tall. Let's go over articulation. Head can do a full 360 spin. Head can look down a little bit. Head can look up pretty decent amount. No tilt in there. Well, there's a little bit of tilt. Actually, there's a lot more tilt in there than I thought there was. Okay, so some good tilt. Arms can come way up, pretty much the whole way. Do the full spin. You have bicep swivel. You have double jointed elbows with some really good travel. And I really like how the elbow pad hides the articulation point. Wrists. Wrists will swivel. There's no pivot to them at all. No in and out, no up and down. And each finger articulates independently, including the thumb. Okay? Keep that in mind. At the waist, we have what looks like it should have been an ab crunch, but there's not a whole lot of range of motion. There's some forward, there's even less back. You have your swivel, and you have some side to side. Now, what they did, which I think this is a really good move. You see the strap comes up all the way around and then comes down to the back and links up with the belt going around. What they did is, right in here, if you can see that, that's going to pick up on camera, is that the belt that's on the shell is separate from the belt going around him. So this whole harness piece does not interfere with the articulation such as it is almost at all. So you can still get a decent range of motion out of him while still having this full harness and belt set up here, which I like. Legs. Legs can come out to the side. Legs will go that far forward. Not so much, not a whole lot of back without going off to the side right there. Because they're the kind that whenever they come up, they're going to roll out to the side. They don't really come straight up. They're on a ball joint, and this is where things start to get a little janky. They're on a ball joint right here, okay? But then you also have the thigh cut right here, which is honestly a little bit useless. Like, the only thing this succeeds in doing is breaking up the leg, that if you have this ball joint here, you don't need this additional thigh cut. But maybe, because then you also have the ankle swivel down here, but we'll get to that. I don't know if they did that because there was no boot cut and they felt they needed a second point of articulation in the leg, but right here it kind of just, it kind of gets in its own way, because whenever you try to turn the leg, you'll turn the thigh, but the ball joint won't spin at the same time. It's just, I feel like it's just too much in a very small area. He has double jointed knees like Rocksteady did, but he has a lot more travel in them. But also like Rocksteady, his legs he'll break forward. These are also very loose in the legs, by the way. I had a real problem keeping him standing during the photo shoot, like he's a model. But like doing anything other than a neutral pose, he started to actually fall in on himself. A lot of problems with knees this month. Forget I said that. Ankles go back. Ankles go forward a decent amount. There's no boot cut here, like I said, and there's no forward-facing pin for Rock, but the ankle does pivot back and forth, and we have double toe articulation, that the toes articulate independently of each other, which is not really good, because by doing this, they're so weak that if you try and get a pose with the feet bent, they don't all make a liar out of me, Leo. But they didn't always, maybe whenever he had his gear on, I don't know, didn't always hold themselves up. He is very back heavy because of this big shell, which, once again, his stand comes into play, and we'll see that when we get to accessories. Now, up here at the head, I have a feeling that this is the same thing that's going on with Rocksteady. That it's just, the neck just comes up to this ball. This ball is sculpted right into it, and it's just a real shallow hole that this sort of rubberized head just pops right on. And for this, it works. For that, I'm fine. Like, it's not the most heavily engineered head joint, but for what this is, I feel like that's fine in and of itself. Now, stand up. Just like with Rocksteady, let's take a look at the sculpt on this guy. So starting at the head, you can see that they definitely tried to mimic the vintage Turtles look with his half snarl right here. And he has his trademark blue bandana. The head is very smooth. It's not too shiny. I know it looks shiny underneath my lights, but really, whenever you see this in person, it's not nearly as shiny as it looks on camera. His eyes, these are the best eyes I could find when I was buying him, that they both kind of are looking forward. This one's a little lazy going off to the side, but truthfully, for me, I don't have a problem with that, because I think what I'm going to end up doing is just hitting both of them with white and just whiting out his eyes entirely, like the vintage toys, like Mirage Comics did. But the face sculpt isn't bad. Like, it's really not. This is rubber, it's not going to break, and it looks like that classic Turtles look, which the classic Turtles look from Playmates was something between the cartoon and the Mirage comic. By whiting these out, I think we'll get closer to the Mirage comic. On my camera, the blue looks a little more blue. I know it probably looks a little purple right now, but trust me, this is a really good shade of blue for Leo. It's a very light blue, and I like that. Then we come down into the body, and it's very plain, but truthfully, what are you going to do with a turtle body? He has his L on the belt, and I like how the belt has these twin tassels hanging here, a little bit of silver lining the buckle. I think that's good. The shell is very plain. I would have liked to have seen it scuffed up, but you don't know. Maybe they're saving that for Raph, that he's going to have some cuts taken out of his shell on back. I'm not entirely sure. I like that there's some texturing in the leather belt. I think that's pretty cool. I like the elbow pads and the wrist pads hiding the articulation, and the knee pads as well. The hands are blocky. There's no other way to put it. The hands are very blocky, especially in the palm, to accommodate the articulation. And I understand, Playmates, I understand that finger articulation is kind of your thing, especially back in the day. But its time has passed. Just ask Jazzwares with their Fortnite series. Finger articulation does not always work. However, with this, and we'll get to that whenever we have his accessories. The legs are also loose, like I said. You have this thigh swivel right next to this ball joint, but the legs are very plainly sculpted. The feet get a little ugly because these toes are so huge and featureless to go on his feet, just to get that articulation in there. So, I don't know. Everything from, like, the belt up, I'm fine with. But when you get to the belt down, including the hands, things start to get a little ugly. I'm also okay with the shell. Even though it is very plain, I'm hoping that Raph's will be marked up a little bit. And I think they do some really good detail work on the belt. So, let's set him back there. Stand. And let's take a look at his accessories. And just like with Rocksteady, he has a stand with his name on it. Same manhole cover motif. Same Turtles molded into it, Turtles logo molded into it, and his name printed across it on the plate. Very reminiscent, actually, of the Mega Construx figures that we took a look at, now that I think about it, except I don't think they had their names printed across it. I can't remember. I'll have to take a look at that. But just like Rocksteady, he has these huge pegs and these deep peg holes. Whoop, 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 whoop. He's falling. And these deep peg holes at the back of his feet, so that pretty much nobody except the Turtles and the ones from this collection will be able to use this stand. But just like Rocksteady, he does look pretty good on it for displaying purposes. So we have that. I'm counting it as an accessory because it comes off of him. He also has his twin sheaths for his Ninjakin. And yes, they're Ninjakin in this, not katana. I'm very happy about that. And you can see that it has a half-round peg. On his back, he also has a half round, so that you can only fit these on one way. Now, mine are bent. They came packaged like that. All I have to do is hit it with a little heat, lay them down, and they'll reshape. So I'm not too worried about that, because these are very soft rubber. They'll be very easy to get back into position. And then he has his Ninjakin, which I like these. I really like these. Molded in silver. Whoop. Molded in silver. Focus, come on. And with some really nice blue paint on the handle that matches his bandana and his pads. This looks really good. I really like the look of these. And of course you get two. Both the same mold, both the same paint app. I really, really like these. I even like how they have the blood groove on the side right here. I think there's some really good attention. Well, I shouldn't say attention to detail, but I think these are some really good molds for his Ninjakin. Now, the articulated hands. Everything I said about these maybe being designed for kids kind of went out the window when I got to the articulated hands, because I had a heck of a time getting him to hold these in any amount, with any amount of force, because they kept slipping out. However, there is a learning curve with it, that once you learn how to properly use these, he'll hold on to them and not let go. There's a bit of a learning curve as to the positioning of these things. Now, the other issue is that along with this learning curve, once you get them into position and you get them held in the position that you want them, if you try to move them, the fingers will come loose and they'll pop right back out, and then you have to work to get them back into his hands again in the pose that you put him. But once he has a grip on them, he has a decent grip on them. I was actually surprised. However, like I said, there's a learning curve, and I could very easily see a child getting frustrated with this because his toy won't hold his weapons. I feel like that for this line, for these turtles, the hands should have been molded hands like we got with Rocksteady, where you could just pop the Ninjakin in and then not worry about him at all. As you can see, this is the best neutral pose I can get him into. I do wish his arms came down a little bit more to the sides, but here he is for a size comparison with the G.I. Joe Classified Cobra Trooper and the G.I. Joe Classified Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins Storm Shadow. Because the Turtles, like Batman, have crossed over with pretty much everything, here he is with Lanyard Toys, Jungle Hunter Predator, and Xenomorph Drone. Here he is with McFarlane Toys, Mortal Kombat Scorpion, and Witcher 3 The Wild Hunt, Geralt of Rivia. I was going to put Liu Kang in here like I did with Rocksteady, but that figure sucks so hard that I couldn't get him to stand up, and I got tired of fighting him. Here he is with Marvel Legends, Loki, and Captain Marvel. And finally, here's the only size comparison that's going to matter for a lot of people, Rocksteady. Leo is taller than Rocksteady. I suspected that when I looked in the box, but I thought because of the posing and the packaging that I might have been wrong. But the Turtles look like they're going to be physically larger than Rocksteady and Bebop. And I'm assuming the Triceratons, maybe even Shredder. I don't know. I don't know what he's going to look like. But this, I don't know. This doesn't work. The Turtles, they can be maybe the same size as Rocksteady, but they should not be this much taller than Rocksteady and Bebop. So at the beginning, when I said this was a mixed bag, I might have been generous. The sculpt and paint app on Rocksteady is really solid. It's really good. The paint app on Leo is really good as well. The sculpt is what it is. I mean, he's a turtle. You're not going to get much out of it. It's very basic, and they're all going to look the same. We know that. We accept that. The articulation leaves a lot to be desired. The jointed hands, the articulated fingers on Leo is going to be a problem for kids trying to put his weapons in his hands. I don't think they're going to have the patience, depending on how old they are, I don't think they're going to have the patience to want to learn or figure out how those three fingers can bend to hold his swords. Rocksteady, he started out great, but then, like I said, his hands loosened, and he just doesn't have a solid grip on his weapons anymore, and not having a place to put his machete is kind of disappointing. Leo not having any wrist pivot when he's a sword-wielding action figure, that is a big missed opportunity as well. And also the size. The Turtles cannot be larger than Bebop and Rocksteady, and yet here they are. There's just no excuse for that, Playmates. You can do better than this. You were the ones that originated the TMNT line back in the 90s, the 80s and the 90s. You were the company to beat for Star Trek toys back in the 90s. You can do better than this. Now, after having said all of that, yes, I'm going to get the other 2-packs, and I will probably do videos on them when I receive them, because I want the Turtles. I want to get them on the shelf, and I feel like this is the line for me, that I'll just have the Turtles stacked up on one side, I'll have the Mutants and Shredder stacked up on the other side. I like the display stands they come with, and truthfully, I cannot recommend these for anybody other than myself. So, until next time, my friends, play well, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.